Satu was a total loser, working as a handyman for a tiny company where his ugly boss treated him like trash and barely paid him, while the HR department spent their time making cringe reels. Wondering if this miserable routine was all life had planned for him, he trudged down the street back to his rundown dump until a truck suddenly sent him flying into an alternate world filled with wizards, warriors, and magical creatures. He quickly realizes that surviving in this world isn't anything like his boring, miserable 9-to-5 job. But what no one expects is that in a world where everyone's busy slaying monsters, a guy who can actually fix things ends up becoming the MVP. Satu soon runs into a strange group of adventurers who ask for his help on their dungeon-crawling missions. The team consists of Railsa, a powerful but shy warrior, Laughing Pan, a tiny fairy healer who's incredibly selfish when it comes to using her magic, and Morlock, an old geezer wizard who's insanely strong but constantly forgets his spells mid-cast. This weird crew slowly starts bonding, and Satu's handyman skills turn out to be incredibly useful. He helps unlock chests, repair damaged gear, and even organize their supplies for travel. Everyone begins to realize just how valuable he is, and for the first time in his life, Satu actually feels appreciated, something he never felt back in his old world. One day, a bald con artist shows up trying to sell a junk sword to the little girl who owns the town shop. She happily buys the useless blade for 18 gold coins. Later, when Satu inspects it, he immediately figures out it's just a dummy sword, but with his handyman skills, he knows he can fix it. The next day, the group finds themselves in a dark cave battling a pack of ugly monsters, but the wizard keeps mixing up his spells like an absolute idiot. Things start going south until Railsa rushes in, saving Satu and the old wizard by slaughtering the monsters with her massive sword. After this fight, Satu starts feeling like a burden. His brain is wired for fixing things, not fighting, and he knows he can't survive in this messed up world without magic. Determined not to hold the team back, he memorizes all of the wizard's spells in just a few days and begins assisting him during missions. Later on, as they struggle to open a treasure chest, the cave suddenly begins collapsing. Satu loses his footing and tumbles down into a dark, eerie underground cavern, landing hard on his backside. Groaning in pain, he realizes his leg is broken and bleeding. There's no way he can escape alone. Haunted by memories of his miserable past, Satu becomes convinced his teammates will see him as useless and abandon him. But moments later, Railsa, the wizard, and Laughing Pan come rushing toward him in a panic. They assure him they'd never leave him behind, because he's truly irreplaceable. Hearing this fills Satu with a strange warmth, and happiness washes over him like never before. The next day, the group faces a multi-headed slimy sea monster called Enogi. Railsa is already throwing up, unable to handle the disgusting slime covering its body. The wizard casts a spell to weaken the beast, and Satu finishes it off with his sword. Afterward, Satu puts his surprisingly badass cooking skills to use, roasting the enogi into a delicious meal. When he serves it, both the wizard and the fairy are blown away by the incredible taste. They start pressuring Rayla to try it, and once she does, she feels like she's reached heaven and ends up devouring the whole thing. With full stomachs, they enter a no-magic cave to continue their mission. They spot a chest, but sensing it's probably trapped, Satu decides to leave it alone. Later, they find another chest, and Satu carefully dismantles the metal traps using his tools. But the moment he does, a foul green liquid splashes onto Railsa's armor, melting it away and revealing her curvy body underneath. As they sit around the campfire that night, the old wizard suddenly complains about severe back pain and asks Laughing Pan to heal him. The greedy fairy crosses her arms and demands a gold coin in exchange for her magic. The wizard has no money left after losing everything to gambling, so Satu steps in and offers to pay for him. Later, when Satu asks Railsa why Laughing Pan always acts self-centered, Railsa quietly leads him to where Laughing Pan is. He sees her holding up a gold coin toward the moon. Confused, he asks about the strange ritual, and Railsa explains that Laughing Pan is a moonlight fairy. Despite her beautiful name, her people were cursed by the moon goddess. If she doesn't make these offerings, their bodies begin to shrink. Railsa explains that the moonlight fairies once lived on the moon, but a jealous half-moon goddess cursed them and cast them down to earth. Hearing this, Satu offers to use his savings to cover Laughing Pan's debt, but Railsa tells him the fairy isn't a freeloader and would never accept charity like that. The next day, Satu opens a chest only for it to activate a teleportation trap that drags both him and Railsa to the lowest level of the Great Labyrinth. The wizard and the fairy aren't affected, since their bodies are naturally immune to magic.
Suddenly, a massive iron golem appears in front of them.
Railsa urgently tells Satu to stay behind her and run if things turn bad. She charges forward with her magnificent sword, but the golem easily knocks her aside. Wounded, Railsa begs Satu to run, but instead he leaps onto the golem and pours molten metal onto its body.
In a final desperate move, the golem slams Satu into the ground, leaving him badly injured. Railsa desperately shakes him, trying to wake him up as time slips away. She prays for the wizard and Lathan Pan to arrive and save him with magic, but then she suddenly remembers a life-saving potion the wizard once gave her, called the Drop of Life. She quickly pours it into her mouth and kisses Satu, transferring the liquid to heal his wounds. After some time, Satu opens his eyes to see the wizard, the fairy, and Railsa anxiously watching over him. Lathan Pan jumps with joy, excitedly explaining how Railsa saved him, leaving Railsa red-faced and flustered. The next morning, Lathan Pan takes Satu on a tour of the strange new world he now lives in. Their first stop is a marriage consultancy office, and Satu is shocked to see that even this magical world has agencies helping people with arranged marriages. Lathan Pan tells him not to be surprised yet, saying the kingdom has plenty of unbelievable things that will completely blow his mind. She explains that the kingdom is mostly peaceful, and the widespread availability of weapons and magic has led to major societal changes, especially empowering women to go on adventures themselves. At the same time, the treasure inside the labyrinth has been mostly exhausted, reducing men's income and making marriage even harder. She then tells Satu to look inside the consultancy office again, where he's stunned to see the old geezer wizard desperately trying to find himself a bride. Railsa immediately storms in and drags him away, causing the marriage consultant to breathe a sigh of relief. Lathan Pan explains that advancements in healing magic have resulted in an aging population, turning the caregiver shortage into a serious issue. Their next mission sends them back into a cave, where they encounter a temptation fairy known for her irresistible beauty. As Satu approaches her, the fairy casts a spell that makes him fall madly in love. The once quiet and shy Satu starts changing, walking toward her with a flirtatious attitude. Railsa watches in shock as the man she has feelings for gets seduced by a half-naked fairy. Anger wells up inside her, and with fierce determination, she charges at the fairy with her sword. A powerful rage takes over her body as she attacks relentlessly, forcing the terrified temptation fairy to dodge desperately for her life. Under Railsa's aggressive assault, the fairy is eventually forced to flee. However, the spell on Satu remains active. Still enchanted, he suddenly feels overwhelming attraction toward Railsa and begins stepping closer to her, while she nervously backs away, completely unsure of what to do next. Satu, still caught under the fairy's spell, slowly inches closer to her face, almost leaning in for a kiss. But just in time, Lathan Pan steps between them, breaking the spell and freeing Satu from the fairy's influence. However, the tension doesn't end there. Suddenly, they notice the old wizard standing hand in hand with the temptation fairy. Satu panics, thinking the wizard has fallen under her charm as well. Railsa casually reassures him, explaining that the wizard is immune to magic and will be rejected by the fairy any moment now. With a smug grin, she tells Satu not to worry about the old hag, calming his nerves as they move on together. Later, they come across a dangerous trap where anyone wearing metal armor risks being struck by lightning. Satu asks if they can safely pass through, but since Railsa is wearing full metal armor, she's in serious danger. The wizard suggests that Railsa remove her armor temporarily so he can use magic to move it across the trap safely. However, Railsa hesitates, she's wearing revealing clothes underneath and feels extremely uncomfortable taking the armor off. Noticing her discomfort, the gentleman Satu quickly takes off his shirt and offers it to her so she can wear it for the time being. But the moment they step onto the trap, the wizard himself gets struck by lightning because the dumb old geezer forgets his spell as usual. Later that night, while Satu is sitting alone in a rented room, he discovers a strange book sealed with a rusty lock. Using his handyman skills, he manages to open it, only to find a hidden case containing a rotten mushroom inside. At that moment, the wizard sneaks up behind him and explains that the mushroom is called a kakaman root, one of the rarest delicacies in existence and absolutely not something that should be wasted. He grabs the mushroom and starts sniffing it like an old man on drugs. He explains that he hid it years ago so no one could steal it, then goes on to instruct Satu on how it should be eaten.
Suddenly, Railsa bursts through the door demanding her share of the mushroom as well, leaving Satu wondering if he somehow ended up traveling with a group of mushroom-obsessed lunatics. One day, while they're on a mission to slay a dragon, Satu accidentally breaks his favorite wire cutter tool while removing the whiskers from the dead beast. Clearly upset, Pelza asks if he can fix it himself. Satu shakes his head in frustration. He's a handyman, not a blacksmith. He wonders if there's any craftsman who could repair his beloved tool quickly. Seeing his disappointment, the wizard suggests visiting one of his old acquaintances, though he warns that the man is unusual. The acquaintance is a dwarf named Dongan, infamously known as the man who hears the voice of steel. He has mastered the art of shaping metal at will, bending and transforming it into entirely new tools. He can craft everything from armor for tiny folk to shields for giants, making him an absolute professional. However, the dwarf retired after years of customers refusing to pay fairly and constantly accusing him of overcharging. The wizard explains that Dongan now hides deep inside a cave, behind a door that won't open without Donbane's 108 keys. That's where the dwarf shut himself away from the world. He adds that breaking into the workshop is harder than sneaking into the king's bedroom. Undeterred, Satu accepts the challenge. After some effort, he successfully unlocks all 108 locks. They enter the workshop and greet the grumpy old dwarf, who is completely stunned that a handyman from another world managed to open his door using pure skill. Dongan quickly repairs Satu's tool with extraordinary craftsmanship and asks to be paid with a dragon scale, which Satu happily provides. As Satu examines the repaired tool, he's left in awe by how perfectly the dwarf reshaped the blade's edges, fusing the metal with flawless precision. Satu opens his mouth, clearly wanting to ask the dwarf to make something else, but when Dongan asks what it is, Satu suddenly changes the subject and asks for food instead. Without hesitation, the dwarf heads off to prepare dinner for them all. While they're drinking and stuffing themselves with food, Satu suddenly asks Railsa what would happen if women, children, and even powerless people could easily get weapons capable of killing others. A half-drunk adventurer casually replies that something like that would be terrible for business. Satu briefly considers how having a gun might be useful in battles, but he hesitates at the thought of bringing such dangerous weapons into this world. Pushing the idea aside, he suddenly stands up and asks Railsa to teach him how to use a sword. Unfortunately, Rayla has already passed out after drinking too much beer. A few days later, Satu comes down with a severe flu, suffering from wild temperature swings. The fairy admits she has no magic that can cure a simple cold, and the wizard agrees. Railsa tells Satu to rest while the group focuses on jobs where they can handle monsters without him. Hearing this, Satu apologizes and says he's useless in battle anyway. What he doesn't realize is that he's already helped the wizard with spells, supported Laugh-N-Pan during combat, and even saved Railsa during the fight with the Iron Golem. The many forms of support Satu provides as a handyman are crucial on the battlefield, and without him, the party simply doesn't function properly. Half a year has passed since Satu was thrown into this mysterious world. One day, he opens up to the shopgirl in town about his past life, explaining that he worked for a construction company back in his world. He was paid poorly and treated with zero respect. When he finally tried to speak up to his boss, he was fired without a second thought. Broken and dejected, he walked home believing, deep down, that it wouldn't matter if he died. Lost in those thoughts, a massive truck suddenly appeared and slammed into him, erasing his existence like he was never needed at all. The very next moment, Satu fell from the sky and landed beside a half-naked, sleeping girl who was mumbling about an old wizard and a fairy. When she woke up and saw a strange man lying next to her, she screamed in terror and pulled out a dagger, ready to kill him for being a pervert. The wizard stopped her, sensing no magical power in Satu at all. That alone proved Satu wasn't from this world, and if the wizard hadn't intervened, Satu would have been dead. Now, the group is sitting together in a local inn, having dinner. But Satu has no appetite, his thoughts keep returning to the Iron Golem. He asks the wizard and Railsa how it was able to move on its own, suspecting either magic or clockwork. But during the fight, Satu clearly heard mechanical sounds, like an engine running inside it. The fairy suggests they go back and inspect its remains to be sure. Railsa agrees, and they decide to return to the 10th floor. Soon, they arrive at the government-controlled labyrinth but are stopped by guards demanding an entry toll. Railsat explains that a year-long pass is far too expensive for them and asks if they can enter by paying a few silver coins instead. The guards agree, and they're allowed inside. As they explore, they quickly realize all the chests have been emptied, there's no treasure left to collect. After walking deeper, they finally reach the spot where they defeated the golem, but its body is completely gone. The wizard suggests someone must have taken it away. Satu apologizes for dragging everyone all this way for nothing. Just then, he hears a strange clunking noise and rushes toward it, with Railsa, the wizard, and the fairy following close behind. He grabs hold of a fast-moving machine. It turns out to be a robotic vacuum. The device slips from his hands and speeds off into the darkness. Seeing this, the wizard asks if the machine comes from Satu's world. Satu nods. Soon after, Satu places his hand on a wall, and the wizard realizes it's a camouflage barrier. With Satu's guidance, he chants a spell, and a bright light spreads across the surface. The wall splits open, revealing a hidden entrance behind it. With the discovery of this new path, adventurers from all across the kingdom soon begin gathering once again. When Satu notices that the kingdom gives him no real recognition for discovering the new entrance, he calmly says he doesn't mind at all, since his party now has free access to the labyrinth for the next 10 years. The wizard catches the faint sadness on Satu's face and asks if he's still thinking about the robotic vacuum they found earlier in the cave. Satu hesitates for a moment, unsure how to respond, but before he can say anything, a charming young boy and an adorable young girl step forward. The boy introduces himself as Kates, the officially recognized hero of the kingdom. He bows politely and thanks Satu for uncovering the new route. Satu then asks the wizard whether the Demon King might return someday. The wizard replies that it's unlikely, but several individuals have been chosen as heroes just in case, and Kates is one of them. With a smug tone, Kates casually adds that even though Satu discovered the route, he'll be the one to conquer all its levels. Everyone stares at him in disbelief, stunned by his blatant rudeness. Before anyone can react, a chubby priest comes running over, apologizing on behalf of the two young heroes. He explains that Kates was chosen at a very young age, which is why his manners are lacking. He introduces himself as Montal Puet, the one responsible for the hero's education, and warmly extends his hand towards Satu in friendship. But just as Satu was about to respond, another hero shouts a warning, saying that the rogue priest is hiding something in his hand, and that anyone who shakes it ends up unable to move. Satu looks around and realizes the warning is true. Soldiers, adventurers, and civilians lie scattered on the ground, groaning in pain, completely paralyzed. Realizing his scheme has been exposed, Montal panics and flees. Satu thanks the stranger who saved him, and Railsa points out that he's a fighter elf with iron hands. The elf calls out to his comrades, urging them to hurry into the labyrinth before the rarest treasures are taken. Soon after, two strange men appear, carrying the severed head of a silver dragon. Railsa quietly tells Satu that those two will be serious competition in the future. They possess one of the strongest parties around. The following day, Satu and his team return to the labyrinth. They feel prepared, but tension hangs heavy in the air. Moving carefully through the dark, winding corridors, they stay alert, their footsteps soft against the stone. The silence is unsettling, broken only by the sound of dripping water echoing through the cave. Suddenly, a thunderous roar shakes the air as a massive dragon-like monster emerges from the shadows. Without warning, it opens its jaws and releases a thick cloud of poisonous smoke directly at Morlock, the party's wizard. Morlock inhales the fumes, his strength rapidly draining as he collapses unconscious. Satu rushes to his side, heart pounding as he desperately tries to wake him, knowing they can't survive without his magic. At the same time, Railsa steps forward, gripping her sword tightly while raising her metal shield, bracing herself to face the monster head-on. The dragon charges with terrifying force, each impact sending shockwaves through her body. She's driven backward, boots scraping across the stone floor as she struggles to stand her ground. She blocks the attacks with her shield, but her arms tremble under the relentless pressure. No matter how hard she strikes, her sword barely scratches the dragon's thick, armored scales. Every swing of its tail nearly knocks her off balance. Then, out of nowhere, a young girl with twin pigtails leaps into the fight. She moves with confidence and speed, charging the dragon with her weapon raised. She slashes into its side, and for the first time, the beast howls in pain, stunned by the sharp strike. The dragon twists and snarls, trying to throw her off, but she keeps attacking without hesitation. Each blow finds a weak point in its scales, forcing the massive creature to stagger under her relentless assault. With one final, powerful strike, the girl delivers the finishing blow. The dragon lets out a long, agonizing roar before collapsing to the ground, completely defeated. She introduces herself as Lilisa Lasson Pop, known by many as the magical beast hunter. Soon, a massive, hulking man steps up beside her, and she introduces him as Giver. She announces that they've come to claim the treasure, but the chest is locked. She tells them not to worry, explaining that Giver is a magician skilled in thievery. However, when Giver attempts to open the lock using his tools, he admits it's too difficult even for him. Satu asks if he can try, but Lilisa gives him a sideways glance, clearly underestimating his abilities. That's when Reincarnated steps forward angrily, declaring that no one should ever underestimate their teammate, Satu. Satu gets to work immediately, and with his precise hands and well-used tools, he unlocks the chest in no time. When he opens it, he gasps, the chest is filled with diamonds. He picks up a handful and offers them to Giver, saying they deserve it for defeating the dragon. Giver suddenly turns bright red, completely flustered. It turns out Satu didn't just open the treasure chest, he opened Giver's heart as well. After a while, Satu ends up separated from his team. As he walks alone, he unexpectedly runs into the rogue priest, Montal, once again. Satu tells him he's not wandering aimlessly anymore since his friends roughly know where he is, so he plans to sit down and rest for a bit. Montal scoffs, calling Satu weak, saying he's nothing but confidence without strength. He tries to gaslight Satu, claiming that his teammates are only strong because they're being manipulated into carrying deadweight like him. When his words have no effect, Montal quickly drops his luggage and erects a magical barrier around himself. When Satu asks about it, Montal says it's to keep monsters away, adding that unfortunately, he doesn't have enough magical energy to make one for Satu. Calmly, Satu pulls out several bottles of holy water given to him by Laughing Pan. He pours them in a circle around himself, forming his own protective barrier, then sits down comfortably. Satu offers Montal a sandwich, but Montal refuses, ashamed of how poorly he treated Satu earlier. He begins to realize that his harsh attitude is what pushes people away from him. Soon, Satu's teammates come running over, asking if he's okay. Watching their strong bond, Montal feels a pang of sadness. His own companions never came looking for him. Suddenly, Kainz comes running toward Montal and hugs him tightly, shouting that he was worried. He asks why Montal wandered off alone. Tears well up in Montal's eyes, and Satu and his team are deeply moved by the sight. They realize that Kainz is actually a good hero, and they had misunderstood him all along. Not long after, they're confronted by a strange demon shaped like a giant spider. Reincarnated is locked in combat with it, and just as she's about to finish it with a brutal strike, the fighter elf leaps down onto the creature and kills it instantly. Afterward, he declares that he'll be taking the treasure the monster was guarding. Reincarnated protests loudly, saying the treasure belongs to her party. The elf turns to her and claims he saved her life, but Reincarnated snaps back that she didn't need his help. The elf insists he saved her from death, and the two begin arguing heatedly over the treasure. Eventually, they decide to settle the matter with a duel, even though adventurers fighting each other inside the Great Labyrinth is strictly forbidden and punishable by permanent expulsion. The elf says he doesn't mind dueling as long as there's mutual consent. His teammate, Ninia, tries to stop him, but he ignores her and asks Reincarnated to send someone from her side. Ninia and Laughing Pan step forward to form a magical pact stating that even if someone dies, there will be no grudges afterward. The magical seal is set. Reincarnated and the elf prepare to fight while Satu watches nervously from the sidelines, confused by a warrior's sense of honor. Still, he finds some comfort knowing Reincarnated is wearing heavy armor, which should prevent any fatal injuries from the elf's iron claws. The duel begins, steel and claws clashing loudly as sparks fly through the air. The elf is fast enough to strike through Reincarnated's armor, his sharp claws cutting into her despite the protection. Satu quickly realizes that Reincarnated's sword isn't suited for fighting a fast, highly skilled opponent like him. Without hesitation, Reincarnated removes her heavy armor and switches to a light combat form, allowing her reaction speed to increase dramatically. Ninia urgently tells the elf to stop, saying she doesn't want him to kill anyone and that continuing the fight isn't worth it. The elf agrees, having already realized that if the duel continued, he might actually lose. With the tension fading, Satu steps forward and says that his team's share of the treasure might be more than enough, so he'd like to give part of it to the elf and Ninya as a gesture of goodwill. Soon after, Satu and his group descend to the lower floors of the labyrinth. Suddenly, Satu hears a familiar sound, the robot vacuum cleaner again. This time, he sprints toward it, shouting to his teammates that he'll be fine on his own. He chases the machine, calling out for it to wait, but it keeps moving deeper into the cave. Eventually, Satu reaches a strange area stacked with objects from his original world. As he tries to make sense of what he's seeing, a masked ninja suddenly attacks him with a sharp blade.
Just in time, Reincarnated steps in and blocks the strike, saving Satu.
She immediately senses illumination magic in the area and wonders why there's so much light, especially since a ninja's specialty is operating in darkness. Suddenly, the ninja steps on her shadow, freezing her in place as her body becomes pinned to the ground. The ninja lunges toward Reincarnated to finish her, but the blacksmith dwarf leaps in and fires an arrow at him, forcing him back. At the same time, Lathan Pan engages the ninja's fairy companion, trying to weaken her illumination magic. Moments later, the dwarf chants a powerful spell, triggering explosions throughout the cave. Taking advantage of the chaos, the ninja retreats and escapes. The dwarf explains that the ninja is responsible for the recent stealth attacks on adventurers. When he notices the wizard, the dwarf bows deeply, saying he's been searching for him for a long time and has finally found him. The wizard is completely confused when the dwarf calls him master and casually replies that he only takes women as students. Calmly, the dwarf explains that it's been many years since the wizard lost his memories, but he is actually a legendary mage from a distant eastern land. 20 years ago, the wizard left on a journey in search of forbidden magic and never returned. The dwarf says he spotted the wizard at the entrance to the Great Labyrinth and waited for the right moment to approach him.
Reincarnated asks the wizard if he truly doesn't remember anything from his past.
He replies that aside from his name Morlock and his magic, he remembers nothing else. Lathan Pan adds that lately, even his magic skills have been unreliable since he constantly forgets his spells. The dwarf interrupts, saying they shouldn't speak so harshly about someone who was not only a great magician, but also famously popular with women. Suddenly, the dwarf's tone turns serious as he reveals the wizard's true name, Burgeon, the Great Mage.
Before anyone can react, a dagger comes out of nowhere and plunges into the dwarf's neck.
The dwarf interrupts, saying they shouldn't speak so harshly about someone who was not only a great magician, but also famously popular with women. Suddenly, the dwarf's tone turns serious as he reveals the wizard's true name, Burgeon, the Great Mage.
Before anyone can react, a dagger comes out of nowhere and plunges into the dwarf's neck.
The sudden attack forces Reincarnated and the others into defensive positions, suspecting the ninja has returned. Reincarnated thinks to herself that even if the ninja is powerful, with Satu supporting the wizard's magic, they should be able to defeat him. But their confidence shatters when they see the ninja again, this time accompanied by powerful demons.
The ninja's past is revealed as a tragic tale.
He once fell in love with a beautiful witch, and when they kissed, she returned his feelings. But when he later went to her village to take her with him, he found her dying, her body aged, fragile, and drained of life. His fairy companion explained that when the witch fell in love, the curse suppressing her true age was broken, returning her to her original state. Desperate to save the woman he loved, the ninja was told of a legendary mage from the east who could help.
That mage turned out to be none other than the old wizard traveling with Satu.
And that is how the ninja ended up following them deep into the labyrinth. As the battle grows more intense, Reincarnated, Lathan Pan, and their companions find themselves facing overwhelming enemies. Reincarnated clashes head-on with the ninja, who uses his mastery of shadow magic to pin her down. He tries to immobilize her by stepping on her shadow, a technique that would completely stop her movement. But Lathan Pan reacts instantly, casting a brilliant moonlight spell. The glowing light strikes the shadow, shattering the ninja's spell and freeing Reincarnated. Lathan Pan warns Reincarnated to stay sharp, reminding her that the danger isn't over if the ninja manages to step on her shadow again. At the same time, she finishes healing the dwarf magician, who immediately rejoins the fight. Determined to protect his companions, the dwarf charges forward to confront the approaching demons, shielding his allies from their devastating attacks. While holding the demons at bay, He signals to the wizard to prepare his strongest spells, knowing they only need to hold the line long enough for the wizard to strike.
The situation escalates when a second demon enters the battle.
This demon confidently declares that he and his kind don't need magic to defeat Picasso.
Their raw strength alone is enough to crush Satu and his party. With a terrifying surge of power, the demon unleashes a massive wave of dark energy towards Satu and the others.
The force is overwhelming, and Satu feels completely crushed by it. Realizing that fire magic won't be enough to stop these demons, and blaming himself for leading everyone into such danger, Satu feels the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Desperate to turn the tide, he urges the wizard to use a high-level spell known as the Seven Thunder Gods, hoping it will be powerful enough to change the course of the battle. Satu already knows the incantation, so he begins chanting it while the wizard follows along, pouring every last bit of energy into the spell. Suddenly, a colossal bolt of lightning crashes down from above, slamming into the demons with devastating force. For a brief moment, it looks like victory might finally be within reach.
But one of the demons survives the strike.
In a brutal counterattack, it grabs Satu in its massive hand, crushing him as blood spills from his body. Raelsa watches in horror, convinced that Satu has been killed. The shock hits her like a blade to the heart, and it feels as though the ground beneath her is collapsing. But then, in a sudden twist, everyone looks up to see Satu standing unharmed beside Liliza and Gvur. The wizard explains that Gvur used a substitution spell at the last possible moment, saving Satu from certain death. Relief washes over the group as they finally breathe again, grateful for Gvur's quick thinking. After things settle down, Gvur explains that he and Liliza heard the noise of the battle and rushed in to help. With a playful grin, he jokes that they couldn't just let Satu keep all the treasure to himself. Liliza adds with a smile that Gvur has actually been tracking Satu for a while using a tracing spell, because he likes him. The group laughs, reassured by the reminder that together, they're far stronger than they are alone. But the calm doesn't last. One of the demons charges at them in a rage, only to be intercepted by the forest elf warrior, who kicks the demon square in the face. The demon launches itself into the air and unleashes yet another wave of dark energy at everyone below. This time, it's stunned to see the attack stopped by a protective barrier. Turning around, the group spots Montal and his teammates standing together, casting the barrier to shield them. United at last, all the warriors prepare to face the ninja and the demons as one. Surrounded by so many powerful fighters, the ninja finally feels the pressure, and the demons decide to retreat, choosing survival over continuing the fight. Ninia urgently asks Laugh-In Pan to help stop the demons from escaping, warning that they could pose a serious threat to high-level adventurers elsewhere in the labyrinth. She suggests combining their magic to eliminate them, and Laugh-In Pan agrees.
Primus, the ninja's fairy companion, tries to intervene, but she's struck down by the magician Richie's magic arrow. Seeing his demon allies in danger, the ninja makes a final decision.
He throws himself into the path of the combined magic, ready to die in order to protect those he loves. For the first time in his life, he acts completely selflessly. The powerful magic slams into him, and when the light fades, both the ninja and the demon stand frozen in shock. The ninja declares that he is carrying out this expedition for the woman he loves, so the demons don't need to force themselves to follow him. Ninia studies the ninja closely and tells everyone that the magical blast barely affected him, even though it should have caused devastating damage.
Satu steps in and asks everyone to stop, saying the outcome has already been decided.
But the fairy elf protests loudly, insisting they can't let them go because they're suspected of killing other adventurers. The ninja's fairy suddenly screams in fury, declaring that she will never allow anyone to obtain the hidden treasure of the wizard who controls time. She begins summoning an 8th-tier dark magic to protect her master and help him save the witch. The dwarf quickly explains that she is a black crystal fairy, a rare being capable of storing massive magical energy inside her black wings. It turns out the fairy deeply cares for the witch. In the past, adventurers constantly hunted her, hoping to exploit the power hidden within her wings. To avoid them, she deliberately made herself plump so humans would lose interest in her. But the extra weight slowed her movements, and eventually, she was captured by one of the adventurers. That was when the witch saved her and took her in. As fellow outcasts, they quickly formed a deep bond. The witch reveals that she has lived alone for over 400 years, shunned by the world. She tells the fairy that she is cursed. If she ever truly falls in love, the curse will break, and she will die. The ninja refuses to let the fairy sacrifice herself. He grabs her wings, trying to stop her from unleashing her black magic against Satu and the others. She screams at him to tear her wings off so her magic can be fully released, but the ninja lacks the strength to do it. Instead, the fairy uses telekinesis, despite having no hands, to stab her own wings with daggers on both sides. She offers her wings to the Lord of Darkness, and moments later, a massive pillar crashes down into the cave, signaling the arrival of a dark spirit. Eyes begin opening across the pillar's surface. One of them locks onto the elf, blasting him across the cavern and ripping his ear apart. Another eye fires a violent wave of energy toward the elf and his teammate, but Reincarnated blocks it with her sword. Reincarnated realizes the horrifying truth: the ninja and his companions are offering themselves as sacrifices to summon dark spirits. Now unleashed, the evil entity starts wreaking havoc throughout the cave. Satu urgently tells the wizard to use the Seven Gods Thunder spell again. The wizard raises his staff high and begins chanting complex incantations, while Satu helps him remember the spell sequence. Lightning crashes down onto the black magic pillar, but nothing happens. Instead, the pillar becomes even more unstable and begins firing red beams of energy from all its eyes. The dwarf shouts for everyone to aim for the eyes, but the creature blocks every attack and continues growing stronger by the second. Its overwhelming power prevents anyone from getting close enough to strike its core. Laughing Pan screams in fear, warning that her magical energy is nearly depleted and she won't be able to block attacks much longer. Desperate, Satu tells the wizard to use the spell that stops time. The wizard stares at him in shock and demands to know how he knows about such forbidden magic. Satu explains that when he unlocked the strange book containing the mushroom, he found a hidden page describing magic that controls time and space. Satu already knows the truth, that it was the wizard who brought him to this world in the first place. The moment the wizard hears those words, memories from his past come rushing back all at once. He remembers the days when he worked tirelessly on an incredibly powerful magical project. Back then, he had a young daughter who meant everything to him. One day, he promised her that he would become the greatest magician in the land so they could live happily together in a beautiful home. He dreamed of giving her the best life possible, but he became consumed by his work. Then, one dark day, his daughter fell gravely ill. His wife begged him to stay by her side and help care for their child, but he pushed her aside, insisting he couldn't abandon his research. He believed that if he stopped now, all his effort would be meaningless. He convinced himself that once he finished his project and earned fame as a great mage, their future would be brighter. Days passed as he buried himself deeper in his work, ignoring his family completely. At last, he succeeded, his magic was complete, and he was recognized as the most powerful wizard alive. Overjoyed, he rushed home, eager to share the news. But instead of celebration, he was met with unbearable silence. His daughter had died from her illness. His wife, broken with grief, told him their little girl was gone. The realization shattered him. Everything he had sacrificed was for nothing. Overcome with sorrow and rage, his wife left him, unable to forgive him. Alone and drowning in regret, the wizard lashed out, destroying his magical books one by one. But among the ruins, he discovered a strange ancient tome. Inside, it spoke of a mysterious labyrinth in the Northern Kingdom, one that contained the secret of time magic, the power to turn back time itself. Hope reignited within him. He resolved to find this magic and bring his daughter back. He traveled to the great labyrinth, searching relentlessly for any trace of the forbidden spell. After days of wandering, he stumbled upon a strange pile of objects that clearly didn't belong there. Among them was an ancient script containing the spell he sought. The moment he picked it up, a figure dressed in white robes appeared before him. The wizard pleaded with the stranger to teach him the magic, explaining his desire to bring his daughter back to life. But the stranger refused outright and instead challenged him to a duel, declaring that only victory would earn him the spell. The battle was brutal, leaving both of them wounded and exhausted. In the end, impressed by the wizard's determination, the stranger agreed to grant his wish, but not in the way the wizard expected. Instead of teaching him the spell, the stranger cast a different kind of magic. The spell erased the wizard's memories, his daughter, his wife, his grief, and even his regrets. With his past completely wiped away, he was forced to begin a new life, free from sorrow but stripped of everything he once loved. In the end, the wizard lost it all, left with nothing but an empty slate and a future lived without the burden of memory. Back in the present, the old wizard stands silently, trying to piece together fragments of his forgotten past. Satu's words echo in his mind, asking if he was the one who summoned him into this world. But the wizard can barely remember anything anymore, especially his mastery of magic. Spells that once flowed naturally now feel like distant echoes, fading whispers beyond his reach. Only one faint memory remains, a single spell called Moment of Time, a magic capable of freezing everything for just one heartbeat. Noticing the wizard's hesitation, Satu steps forward and offers his help. Drawing on the memory of the spell he once glimpsed, he gently guides the wizard. Slowly, with Satu's assistance, the wizard begins preparing the spell, drawing on whatever fragments he can still recall. Meanwhile, the dwarf sends a telepathic message to the group, informing them of the plan. His master's magic will be their hidden trump card. All they need to do is keep the pillar's eye open long enough for the spell to be completed. Motivated by this hope, the team leaps into action. Each member uses their unique abilities to keep the pillar from unleashing further destruction. The forest elf takes command, directing Railsa to protect Giver and Ninia, while he focuses on baiting the pillar's eye into firing its beams repeatedly. Each blast keeps the eye active, buying precious time for the wizard and Satu to continue chanting. Just as the spell begins to take shape and progress is finally made, disaster strikes. Once the wizard heard those words, memories from his past came rushing back like a violent tide. He remembered the days when he worked tirelessly on a powerful magical project, driven by ambition and obsession. Back then, he had a little daughter who meant everything to him. He once promised her that he would become the greatest magician in the land so they could live happily together in a beautiful home. He dreamed of giving her the best life possible, but his work always came first. Then one dark day, his daughter fell gravely ill. His wife begged him to stay by her side and help care for their child, but he brushed her aside, insisting that he couldn't abandon his work. He believed that finishing his project would secure their future. Days passed as he immersed himself in magic, ignoring his family, until he finally achieved his goal and was recognized as the most powerful wizard alive. Overjoyed, he rushed home to share the news, only to be greeted by silence. His daughter had died. His wife, shattered by grief and rage, told him the truth and left him soon after, abandoning him to his regret. In despair, he destroyed his magical books one by one until he discovered an ancient text describing a northern labyrinth that held the secret of time magic. Clinging to hope, he journeyed there, searching desperately until he found the spell he sought. A mysterious figure challenged him to a duel and, after witnessing his resolve, cast a spell that erased his memories instead of granting his wish. Thus, the wizard lost everything, his past, his love, and his pain, forced to live anew without remembering why he suffered. Back in the present, the old wizard stands frozen, struggling to piece together fragments of who he once was. As Satu asks whether he was the one who summoned him to this world, the wizard finds his mind clouded, his once natural spells reduced to distant echoes. Only one spell lingers faintly in his memory, a magic known as Moment of Time, capable of freezing the world for a single heartbeat. Seeing the wizard hesitate, Satu steps forward and offers his help, guiding him with the memory of the spell he had once seen. Slowly, under Satu's guidance, the wizard begins to chant. Meanwhile, the dwarf sends a telepathic message to the others, explaining that the wizard's magic will be their hidden trump card and that they must keep the pillar's eye open until the spell is complete. The team rallies, each using their abilities to hold back the chaos, while the forest elf directs Railsa to protect Giver and Ninia and focuses on provoking the eye into firing so it stays open. Disaster strikes when Lathan Pan is hit by a beam and knocked out of the fight. Time is running out. Montal and his students rush in to shield the wizard as tension thickens the air. At last, the wizard finishes the chant, and an unnatural silence falls as the world freezes completely. Everything stops, friends, enemies, and destruction suspended in a single moment. Yet confusion overwhelms him. He has only 100 seconds and no idea what to do. Then he notices instructions scratched into his palm written by Satu, telling him to attack the eyes with magic. Rage and love surge through him as he begins another spell, pushing his power beyond its limits. As he prepares to strike, memories flood his mind: the ninja's desperate love, the witch's curse, and the fairy's sacrifice. Understanding the cost, the wizard restrains his power, destroying the pillar while activating magic cancellation.
Time resumes.
The pillar crumbles, and the wizard's arm falls severed to the ground. He calmly explains that he spared them by using only half his magic, losing his arm in return.
As emotions spill over, Railson embraces him in tears.
The group recovers the fairy's black wings from the rubble, and though she resists help at first, the truth is laid bare: everyone here has chosen their bonds, human or otherwise. The ninja admits his guilt for the chaos he caused and offers his life as payment, begging only that the fairy and the demons be spared. As silence settles, a dwarf steps forward and asks if the ninja is searching for a mage who can control time.
The ninja's eyes light up as he confirms it. He knows that mage.
His name is Crom. This Crom is someone the ninja believes might hold the key to fixing his past mistakes, perhaps even saving a lost friend he can't forget. The dwarf then looks over to where a wizard, clearly injured, is having his arm attended to by Montal and several other adventurers.
The dwarf reveals to the ninja that the mage he's searching for is right there before him.
The injured wizard is Crom, with a rank so rare and powerful that he is known as a void rank magician. He is one of the most skilled mages in the famous Eastern Kingdom, and his reputation has spread far and wide. 10 years ago, he became well known when he set out to explore the dangerous Great Labyrinth, a place filled with untold mysteries and dangers. Crom's achievements have made him a legend. And hearing that the wizard standing before him is indeed Crom fills the ninja with a glimmer of hope. The ninja's heart races as he looks at the wizard, his mind racing with thoughts of possibility. If Crom can control time, he might be able to help the ninja save a powerful witch who has been lost for years and reunite him with his long-lost lover. His despair begins to lift, replaced by the faintest spark of hope. But suddenly, 3 swords thrust into the ground right in front of the ninja, breaking his thoughts. He glances up, surprised as 2 shadowy figures step out from the darkness, their faces concealed, but their presence intimidating. They move silently, their dark cloaks flowing and their expressions unreadable as they approach the ninja and the group of adventurers. The 2 men declare that they will punish the ninja for the killings and order the swords to attack him. But before the swords can touch the ninja, his comrade demon takes the attack on himself. The other demon angrily marches in front of the 2 men and warns them that if they lay their filthy hands on his boss, then he will finish them both. But suddenly, one of the men transforms into a demon, revealing that he is the uncle of the demon who works for the ninja. As soon they both started bonding over fond memories of the past. Seeing this, the Black Wings fairy confirms that the Holy Knight is definitely a demon and a pretty high-ranked one. Satu asks Laugh-N-Pan about how many people have been killed by the demon's sneak attacks, and she replies that there are 2 who haven't been confirmed revived and a Holy Knight and a magician from another kingdom. It turns out that the magician and knight are the 2 fellows in front of them. One of them is the minister of the king. Also, if these 2 fellows forgive the ninja, then he won't be hanged. Soon, the ninja asks the wizard if he can help him in turning time. And the wizard replies that he can only stop time for a moment. The person who can actually conduct the time reversal magic is the wizard who has summoned the items from another dimension to this world, but he grew tired of the world and went somewhere else. The wizard has no idea where the stranger is. He can be in the demon realm, the spirit realm, or perhaps in the human world where Satu came from, and finding him will be impossible. The minister comes forward and says that there might be another way to save the witch. The king whom he serves is capable of conducting that magic. But it requires the life of a person who was connected with the witch. Both the demons turn towards the ninja, urging him to not give up his life, and there might be some other way to revive the witch. But the ninja asks the minister to use his life. He declares that if he is to be hanged anyway, he will use his life to protect the woman he loves. The minister replies that the ninja should be treated according to the laws of the kingdom. But if everyone pretends to look past his crimes and forgive him, then something else can be worked out. Soon, everyone decides to forgive the ninja, and Satu says that if the ninja wishes to be of use to someone, then he should be allowed to do that. Later, the demons are sent back to their homes, and the minister has contacted the king who can break the curse of the witch, and he gets ready to use the teleportation magic to take the ninja to him. After the ninja is teleported, Lafona asks Satu if he has found the robot vacuum that he had been looking for, and he says that he hasn't found it yet. He adds that he is not focused on that specifically. The wizard says that the magician who might have lived here in the past must have called these things when he opened the doors to other worlds. Soon, other magicians start coming to the labyrinth, indicating that the new area has become popular. On the other hand, the king accompanies the ninja to the witch's home in order to break the spell on the dying witch. The ninja tells the king that his rash act of loving the witch has led her to grow old, and that when he realized for the first time that just as he cared for his friends, the people he killed must have also had people they loved. The king replies that the fact that he hadn't realized something so simple until now makes him look like a petty man. Soon, he raises his sword and strikes at the ninja to break the spell. But the king, being a kind person, doesn't kill the ninja, but cuts off one of his arms and legs. The witch steps out of her chamber, her appearance restored to youthfulness and strength after a long rest. Her skin is smooth, her face bright and lively, and her energy unmistakable. As she glances around, she notices a figure waiting nearby. A lone ninja who stands silent, but she is quick to observe that he is missing both a limb and a leg. This loss, though painful, seems to not trouble him as much as his steady gaze on her does. What she does not realize, however, is that this injured man has endured immense suffering and sacrifice for her sake. Unbeknownst to her, the black-winged fairy has given up her own wings to save him, sparing his life at a great personal cost. The fair's wings were her most treasured possession, the essence of her being. Yet, she let them go to save this loyal ninja. The witch, who has been in a deep slumber for a long time, has forgotten much about her past and the people who cared for her, including the ninja standing before her now. Without recognizing him, she casts a casual, indifferent glance in his direction and starts to walk away. Watching this, the ninja feels a pang of sorrow in his heart. Realizing that she remembers nothing of their connection, he quietly turns to leave, his heart heavy with unspoken words. Yet, just as he begins to walk away, the black-winged fairy emerges, mocking him with a fiery tone, urging him not to retreat without speaking his truth, without confessing his love to the one he has cherished in silence for so long. But the ninja, filled with humility and gratitude, replies that it doesn't matter if his love is unacknowledged. He is content knowing she is safe and alive. The fairy, outraged at his refusal to speak his feelings, lets out a furious scream, reminding him of her sacrifices. She points out that she has given her wings, becoming weaker and thinner in the process, all to see his love fulfilled. Refusing to let him leave in cowardice, she challenges him to stay, face the witch with courage, and try to win her heart once more. Just then, as the ninja turns back, he notices the witch being approached by two suspicious figures. Initially, he assumes she is still powerful enough to handle such trivial threats and does not intervene. But the black-winged fairy, perceptive and wise, informs him that she can sense no magic within the witch and her power appears to have vanished during her long rest. This revelation jolts the ninja into action. And without further hesitation, he rushes toward the witch, determined to shield her from harm. He swiftly drives away the two men who have dared to approach her. To his surprise, it turns out that these two figures are not ordinary thugs, but rather his own sworn brothers, demons who have arrived with the black-winged fairy to play a role in his love story. They too have come to help him overcome his fear and win back the witch's heart, hoping that through their intervention, the ninja and the witch will finally realize their love and come together. The adventurers bid each other farewell at the labyrinth's exit, each going their separate ways, but promising to meet again when fate allows. Together, they head back to town. Feeling both exhausted and accomplished, they decide to unwind at a nearby inn, a cozy place with the warm aroma of hearty food filling the air, making it the perfect spot to relax after their challenging journey. Gathered around a large table, they share their recent tales, laugh, and feel grateful for the bond they've formed in their shared adventure. As they enjoy their meal, someone finally raises the question that's been on everyone's mind, and they want to know how the mysterious wizard among them managed to bring Satu into their own. The wizard admits that he can hardly recall the details. He remembers practicing his magic one day, just as he often does, and then out of nowhere, Satu appeared in Rail's room as if by pure chance or fate. It's a mystery even to him, and he expresses a sense of guilt, explaining that he hadn't intended to transport Satu to their world without his permission. However, Satu, appreciating the wizard's honesty, doesn't hold any resentment, and in fact he feels thankful for this twist of fate as it saved him from a terrible accident in his own world.
The group sits in thoughtful silence until Laugh and Pan voices an idea that has been lingering in everyone's mind. She suggests that if the wizard's magic was strong enough to bring Satu into their world, perhaps that same magic could send him back to where he came from. The possibility sparks a wave of mixed emotions around the table. Each member contemplates what this could mean. For Rayla, who has grown close to Satu through their battles and shared experiences, the idea of him leaving strikes a deep chord. She feels a surge of resistance and is reminded of the promise Satu made to stay by her side and work with her until the end. The thought of parting ways with him feels too painful to bear, as she values the friendship and strength he's brought into her life. She adds that their party's reputation only started to rise after Satu joined them, and if he returns, then they would be lost without him. Saying this, she storms out of the inn with tears in her eyes. While Satu anxiously follows her outside, everyone starts searching for Satu and Rayla, worried that the monsters might be lurking around in the darkness. And Rayla has also left her sword behind. Satu, a quiet adventurer from another world, has been feeling conflicted about his place in this new world, particularly in his relationship with Rayla, a powerful warrior. Rayla seems to sense his unease. So, during a moment together, she asks him about his desire to return to his own world. Satu admits that he doesn't truly wish to go back, revealing that no one really wants him there. Just as he starts to open up, an enormous, terrifying centipede-like monster covered in thick armor emerges suddenly from the sea. The creature is swift, lunging straight toward Rayla, its razor-sharp claws poised to strike. Satu freezes, overcome by helplessness, unable to intervene as the beast reaches Rayla. The monster's claws dig deep into her armor, and Satu watches in horror, fearing for her safety. However, to his surprise, Rayla draws on an incredible reserve of strength, tearing the monster apart with her bare hands, splitting it cleanly in two. As the monster's body falls lifelessly into the water, Rayla stands victorious, but visibly shaken, her emotions spilling over. She reveals to Satu through the look in her eyes and the strength of her actions, how deeply she values him. She seems to be telling him without words that he means more to her than anyone else in this world. Satu, still shaken but relieved that she is safe, steps closer to examine her injuries. He notices a few scars and with a careful hand, applies a small bandage to one of them, reminding her to drink an anti-venom potion as a precaution. In his own quiet way, Satu's gesture shows Rayla that he too cares deeply for her, and he expresses his desire to stay by the side of the person who truly needs him. Rayla is moved but tries to hide her emotions, glancing instead at the fallen monster as if to distract herself from the intense moment. She even attempts to shift the conversation by commenting on Satu's growing knowledge of monsters, trying to bring lightness back into their interaction. Before they can dwell any further on their feelings, the wizard and Laugh and Pan arrive on the scene. Rayla, with lingering concern for Satu's future, asks the old wizard if he would be able to use his magic to send Satu back to his original world. The wizard considers the idea, but explains that even if he had the proper spell book, returning Satu to his world would place him in the exact same moment and situation he left, that is right in front of the large speeding truck that had initially transported him to this world, leaving him to almost certain death. Though the thought brings a momentary sadness to Satu, he quickly brushes it off with a glimmer of hope, saying he wasn't planning to return anyway. He realizes that he has finally found a place where he is needed and most importantly accepted. With his resolve reaffirmed, he decides to remain an adventurer alongside Rayla and their companions. Embracing the dangers and wonders of this new life, they all continue on their journey, their bond now stronger than ever as they face new challenges together. Trusting that they have each other's backs in both battle and in life. Months after the intense battle with dark spirits, Rayla, Laugh and Pan, and Satu receive shocking news from a messenger that the wizard has passed away. The group is taken back, especially Rayla, who is immediately filled with a sense of urgency. She thinks of every possible solution to revive him, asking the messenger if he has any revival potion or if they could rush the body to a nearby temple for revival. But the messenger dismisses her concerns, explaining that reviving a body through formal procedures or even preserving it at a mortgage requires significant funds, which neither he nor anyone else is willing to spend. In an apathetic tone, he mentions that the wizard's body has been placed in a simple shed to prevent decay, but even that did not keep it entirely safe. A wild dog managed to bite part of the wizard's body, leaving them no choice but to bury him quickly to avoid further disrespect. Later, the group visits the wizard's grave to pay their respects,
and it's clear that each of them feels a heavy sense of regret and sadness. Lafin, knowledgeable in magic and its limitations, expresses that revival magic is likely ineffective when a body is damaged and certainly impossible if it has already been buried. Despite her reasoning, Satu cannot shake off his disbelief and guilt over the wizard's death, finding it hard to accept that their attempts to save him with an antidote ultimately came too late. To him, it seems improbable that the wizard succumbed to mere venom when they had survived far more dangerous challenges together. Rail shares his disbelief, struggling to come to terms with the idea that someone as powerful as the wizard could meet his end outside of battle. Driven by a flicker of hope, Satu suggests they consider the possibility of digging up the body to at least try a revival spell. But Railsa knows this would demand an enormous donation to the church and an expense they cannot afford, especially since reviving a higher mage is no small feat. She also knows that as time passes, the chances of revival success decrease dramatically. Satu, however, argues that in this world, unlike the one he came from, death does not have to be the absolute end, and every passing moment without action reduces their chances of reviving the wizard. He presses the idea that they should take any chance they have, no matter how slim, to honor their friend and try to bring him back. Inspired by his determination, Lafin Pan agrees with him and decides that they need to act swiftly. She readies herself to gather the necessary tools for the revival, planning to visit the magic shop and obtain what they need. While instructing Railsa and Satu to find suitable digging tools, on her way to the shop, Lafa thinks about how important Satu has been for their journey. She knows that without him, they would probably have given up a long time ago. Determined to find the tools they need, she goes from shop to shop, searching, but every place she visits is packed with people. So busy that getting what she needs seems impossible. After a while, feeling frustrated and defeated, she returns to the grave. However, when she arrives, she is shocked. The grave they had carefully dug is now empty, the dirt scattered around, and the wizard's body is nowhere to be seen. Just then, Sue and Railsa arrive, and they too are startled to see the disturbed grave. But before they can make sense of it, something strange catches their eye. A figure stands at a distance and looks like a man draped in a dark, torn cape and wearing a tall, pointed hat like a wizard. However, something about him feels wrong. This figure stands alone, shooting waves of fire into the sky in chaotic bursts. They stare, unable to understand what they're seeing. And as they watch, it becomes clearer that this is no ordinary person. The figure looks like a skeleton, his hollow eyes glowing with a fierce, unnatural light. For a moment, Railsa and Sati wonder if this might be their wizard, somehow brought back to life in this twisted form. But as they look closer, they realize that he doesn't seem to recognize them at all. He just keeps casting fire wildly with no focus or control. Realizing they are in real danger, Railsa and Satu hide behind a large rock, pressing themselves against it to protect themselves from the fiery attacks. Railsa's mind races as she understands the seriousness of their situation. She knows that if they just stay hidden, the skeleton might soon target them directly and they would have no way to escape. In her heart, she feels they have no choice but to face this threat, even though it is dangerous. Gathering her courage, she decides she must act. She dashes across the open sand toward the skeleton with Satu right behind her, both hoping to end this terrifying ordeal. As Railsa approaches, she raises her sword and strikes at the skeleton's head with all her strength. Her blade connects, but to her horror, it does almost nothing. The skeleton's head shakes from the impact, but it remains unbroken, barely affected. Rayla quickly realizes that her weapon is useless against this foe. Only a magical weapon can break through this skeleton's defenses, and she begins to panic and keeps dodging its relentless attacks while trying to figure out another way to fight it. Seeing Rail struggle, Satu comes up with an idea. He runs toward her, carrying a bottle of holy water. If Railsa can pour it over her sword, it might transform her weapon into something magical and powerful enough to defeat the skeleton. But just as Satu tries to hand her the bottle, the skeleton turns to them and unleashes a fierce blast of fire. The blast shatters the bottle instantly, spilling the holy water into the sand. Both Railsa and Satu feel a surge of fear as they realize their last hope has slipped away, and the skeleton is now preparing another, more powerful attack aimed straight at Railsa. Suddenly, just as all hope seems lost, a strong force strikes the skeleton from an unexpected direction. The hit is so powerful that it knocks the skeleton's head off completely, sending it rolling across the sand. Railsa and Satu turn in shock, looking to see who or what has intervened. They spot a shadowy figure emerging from the distance. This figure resembles their wizard in a strange way, though it seems different. The shadow mumbles, repeating something in a voice that sounds oddly familiar. Rael's heart skips a beat as she recognizes the voice, and it's unmistakably the voice of their wizard. A mix of relief and confusion washes over them. Satu feels a wave of relief, glad to see some form of their friend alive. But as they move closer, they see that the wizard's appearance is far from normal. His body is skeletal, his face gaunt with empty eyes that gaze at them in a daze. When Raelsa tries to understand what happened, the wizard seems confused himself, only recalling that he was lying down and then lost consciousness. But then something strange begins to happen. The wizard's skeletal form slowly changes, flesh and bone gradually returning bit by bit. His hollow face begins to take on familiar features. His skin and beard reappearing in patches until he finally stands before them, looking like the wizard they knew. While Raelsa is relieved to see him alive, she can't help feeling a bit disgusted by the sight of his features coming back in this unsettling way. Despite the strangeness, they both feel reassured with the wizard back by their side, ready to face whatever dangers lie ahead. Later at the inn, the wizard tells them that he had signed a resurrection contract, which means that even if he dies, he will come back to life after a day. It's a high-level magic and effective only once. Satu exclaims in joy that he is glad to see that the wizard is back to life. But suddenly the wizard's face turns into a skeleton and then back to normal, indicating that the spell keeps coming back to him, making him turn into a skeleton over and over again. Lafa declares that the geyser's body part is missing and that is why the revival magic is not working on him and there is nothing they can do about it. Hearing their conversation, the dwarf who loves the wizard enters the inn and declares that he will help the wizard and shows them the great encyclopedia of magic that has all the spells called the Magicopedia. According to the book, when the revival magic fails because a part of the body is missing, then they have to bring back the missing part. Even if the flesh is eaten and consumed, the magical energy will remain in the one who consumed it. So, if they find the dog that ate the wizard's body part and bring its magical energy, then the wizard will be able to revive completely. The next morning, they are off to find the dog with the help of the dwarf, but they can't seem to detect the magic. Suddenly the forest elf comes towards them and he is scared shitless to see the skeleton form of the wizard. But later when he comes to know that the innkeeper had told Satu that the dog had a red mark on its forehead, he seems to recall something. He explains that there was a job vacancy posted in the city which was to find the huge dog with a cross-shaped scar on its head because it's attacking people. But the elf didn't take the job because the pay was low and he had other work. But the dog was on the outskirts of the town in the west. Hearing this, Satu declares that they should immediately go to that place. They reach the desert where dead bodies are buried. The wizard and Satu stop at a place to rest while Rayla and others are walking ahead. The wizard tells Satu that Rayla was an orphan when he found her. She had lost his father to a wolf attack and her mother died fighting the wolf's mate. Since then, she had lived with a wolf pup and became friends with it until the wizard found him. For the wizard, Rayla is like her very own daughter, so he asks Satu to take her along wherever he goes. Satu was a bit flustered and replies that they need to consider Raelsa's feelings too. The old geyser says that Raelsa already likes him very much. The wizard adds that if there is anyone he will trust his daughter with, it will only be Satu, but if he is not ready, he will not force him. Satu replies that he is not sure if a guy like him is suitable for her, but he will try his best. And finally he asks the wizard if he can have Raels. Hearing this, the wizard hugs Satu and starts sobbing. Suddenly the wild dog with insane magician energy jumps on the wizard and bites his hand off his body. And when Satu tries to save him, he is attacked too. When Rayla and Lafa run off to find them, they find them both lying on the ground whimpering in pain while the wild dog is right there in front of them. Rayla asks Lafa to help Satu with her revival magic as she is still breathing, while she will deal with the wild dog who was munching on their body parts. Raelsa yells in anger that she will cut the wild dog in pieces and retrieve the geyser's body parts from its body. Saying this, she runs towards the dog while it runs towards her and they both brutally clash with each other. The dog releases the fire breath from deep within its body, which blows off Railsa's armor. But Railsa charges at it nevertheless and strikes at its vital nerve, injuring the dog. Just when she tries to kill it, an adorable white wolf pup comes between and starts barking at Railsa. She quickly realizes that it's the dog's pup. Hearing the voice of its pup, the wolf stands up with difficulty and walks towards Railsa, asking her to kill him, but spare his son's life. Rayla angrily looks at the wolf, but Satu grabs her attention by telling her that the wizard is not breathing. Railsa declares that she will spare the pup. But she will cut off the limbs of the wolf and retrieve the magical energy from it to save the wizard. But just as she raises her sword to do that, two tentacles pierce the body of the wolf and Lafa yells that it's the great demon. The demon starts disappearing with the wolf's body. But Satu quickly takes an anchor out of his tool belt and wraps it around the wolf's body, determined to not let it go until the wizard is resurrected. Lafa quickly infuses Railsa's sword with her magic. Rayla asks the Demon King to leave the dog, but it doesn't because he wishes to take the revenge of his dead brother. He adds that the dog should have shriveled up and died by now, but it ended up eating a tremendous amount of magical energy. So, his master has ordered him to take it back. The demon starts chanting the curse of the seven lightning and Railsa runs towards it to save the wolf before the chants are complete. But the curse is unleashed, so Lore releases a gold barrier to save Rayla. Rayla takes the opportunity and stabs the demon with her sword. However, the demon's master comes to the surface and attacks them with a fire energy and Lafa collapses while saving Railsa. The Demon King emerges from his body and Railsa realizes that it's one of the strongest enemies she has ever come across. She asks Satu to take Lafa and run away because he will hold her back. She asks him to leave the wizard and the dog and she will bring them back with her. Satu runs with Lafa and tries to take the pup too, but the pup is not willing to leave without the father wolf. Satu wonders what he should do to save his friends. While Rayla is dealing with the brutal Demon King, the Demon King wraps its tentacles around Railsa saying that she will make a beautiful stuffed specimen. It goes on to pierce Railsa's neck with his tentacles, but Satu runs towards it with its wire cutter and cuts its tentacle. Rails cuts the Demon King in two halves. But as soon as it reaches its core, the ice curse is released. But Satu bots in and takes the curse on himself and gets frozen. Rayla keeps fighting with the demon to save Satu from being killed. Close by, Satu had placed the wizard's body close to the wolf and now the old geyser can feel a magical energy close to its body. This soul reaches another realm where the dead dog is asking the wizard to take care of the pup in exchange of his magic energy and the wizard readily agrees. On the other hand, Rayla is badly injured with blood spewing out of her body. But suddenly, the demon's head is cut off and Sage's ice is broken and he lands in Railsa's arms. They both realize that it's the power of the 6 magic wind-killing swords. And when they look in that direction, they see that the wizard is back again with all his strength and magical power. The wizard attacks the demon with his magic 8-point fire swords which pierce through its body and kills the Demon King. The wizard walks towards Satu, Lafa, and Rylas who are shedding tears of joy on seeing him again. The wizard has grown a pair of ears and tail in exchange for the dog's magical powers. He tells everyone that the dog gave its power to him, but he has to take care of his pup. But he wishes to return the dog's share of power to revive him for his pup. But suddenly a huge gust of wind comes right in front of them and knocks the wizard and everyone stares in bewilderment as the Demon King rises again. But the wizard is not hurt at all. He gathers all his energy and soon turns into a handsome young man, declaring that he has gained his youth back. He suddenly summons a massive golem with his teleportation magic and fuses it to make a huge rock monster. In the fierce heat of battle, the Demon King broke through the massive rock golem with unstoppable force. His eyes locked on the lone wizard who dared to defy him. But the wizard, brimming with courage, responded with a powerful punch, landing a blow squarely across the Demon King's face. Seizing the moment, he commanded the golem's shattered rocks to gather and attempted to crush the demon beneath them. Using his magic, he intensified his grip, forcing every stone to bind itself to the Demon King's body, locking him in place like metal shards clinging to a powerful magnet. Still, the wizard knew this would only buy him a few moments to protect his allies. With haste, he drew a large barrier around them, hoping to shield them from the Demon King's relentless wrath. Now, in a last desperate bid to end this struggle, the wizard began to summon his ultimate weapon, the legendary 8-pointed flame sword, a fiery formation known as the Flame Sword of War. The atmosphere thickens with power as he brings the flames into existence. 8 blazing points forming above him. But just as the moment of triumph neared, his mind went blank. He'd forgotten the ancient chants that would unleash the weapon's full strength. This falter left him vulnerable, and the Demon King, sensing weakness, surged forward with deadly intent. As the demon closed in, ready to strike down the wizard, Satu charged into the scene. Wielding Rael's sword with unwavering determination. With one swift stroke, Satu sliced through the demon's arm, halting his advance. This unexpected strike gave the wizard the opportunity he needed. Satu urged him to channel his fire magic to burn the Demon King. And together they unleashed the scorching flames that finally engulfed the monstrous foe. As the last of the fire faded, a wave of relief swept over them, signaling that the Demon King had been defeated. Rayla, overwhelmed with gratitude and emotions for Satu's bravery, ran towards him, her heart racing as she prepared to embrace him. But before she could reach him, a startling sight halted her in her tracks when the severed head of the Demon King, which had somehow retained a trace of life, lunged toward them. Just as it seemed the danger wasn't over, a small pup, the offspring of the wild dog who had once guarded their lands, pounced on the head, eliminating the last remnant of the Demon King. However, the young pup's loyalty turned to anger, barking and growling at Satu and the wizard, accusing them of killing his father, the wild dog. In a heartbreaking moment, the wizard sensed the pup's grief and carefully picked him up, allowing the pup to take in his scent. Somehow, the familiar smell seemed to calm the pup. As the wizard's energy felt reminiscent of his father's, moved by the little creature's loss, the wizard made a bold decision. He poured some of his life energy into the lifeless form of the wild dog. Despite his companion's protests, slowly, the wild dog stirred back to life, awakening to see his pup crying beside him. The wizard's selfless act took a toll on his own strength. And as the dog and pup reunited, he collapsed from exhaustion. Rayla, filled with worry, lifted him in her arms, determined to take him home and nurse him back to health. Back in the inn, Satu wakes suddenly to find Raelsa sitting quietly across from him. Her gaze steady as she watches him regain his senses. She explains that he fell into a deep slumber as soon as they returned. Satu notices a softness in her expression, a rare and fleeting glimpse of concern. They share this quiet moment until they step out to join the others. Outside, the wizard is up and about, fully recovered after a good night's sleep, though his rest seems to have only rekindled his mischief, and he's already stirring up trouble among the inn's guests and staff, much to everyone's surprise. Later, Raelsa and Satu make their way to the top of the labyrinth, climbing to a vantage point where they can gaze over the winding paths below. The atmosphere is peaceful and Rayla seems pensive. Her gaze is distant as she shares something deeply personal. She tells Satu that while he was resting, she had found herself talking to a stray dog they'd encountered on the way. For someone as guarded as Raelsa, this seems out of character. But then she explains that the dog reminded her of a wolf pup she had once known. In her early years, Rayla had spent 3 winters with that wolf pup, surviving through difficult times together. She muses that this experience might have made her rougher, less refined than others, shaping her in ways that only those who'd shared hardships might understand. In her heart, she feels she belongs only with people who accept her for exactly who she is. And Satu realizes how deeply he values her presence. He blurts out that he needs her in his life more than anyone else in this world. The words leave his mouth before he can stop them. Just as the gravity of his admission settles between them, the dwarf rushes toward them, his voice breaking the silence. Breathless and agitated, he announces that the wizard has lost the inn's keys and has somehow managed to get himself into trouble. He needs Satu's help with the locks, urgently tugging him away and leaving Rayla alone on the rooftop. Later, once the chaos has calmed, Satu finds himself with the wizard in a quiet room. He brings a small bottle of honey, offering it to the wizard, who, in a rare moment of openness, seems pleased by the unexpected gesture. The simple treat creates a rare pause in the wizard's antics, softening his mood for just a moment. Not long after, Satu seeks out Railsa again, this time with a carefully crafted gift, which is a sharp, sturdy weapon he's made especially for her. As she examines it, she notices a small hairpin cleverly attached to the weapon's handle. She understands instantly that this is Satu's way of giving her something personal beyond the practical gift of a weapon. With a faint smile, she removes the hairpin and places it in her hair, a quiet acknowledgement of his gesture. Their next journey brings them face to face with a magical beast, a manticore whose appearance amusingly resembles the wizard. With swift determination, Railsa strikes it down in a single powerful blow. Her spirits seemingly renewed. There's an energy in her movements that hints at a newfound strength. A confidence born from the unspoken bond between her and Satu. Later, Satu prepares a bath for Latha and she is thrilled to have a small bath for her to relax and have some fun. Later, they both end up sleeping because of exhaustion. And the next day, when they wake up, Latha is not a small fairy anymore. She has gained the size of a human. After some time, they both go on a walk together where Latha is jumping in joy because she is back to her usual size, indicating that her curse has been broken. Satu suddenly gives her a beautiful robe. But she refuses to accept it because she doesn't have gold coins to give to Satu. But Satu quickly replies that this is an apology and a gift of gratitude for Latha's acts of selflessness. Latha wears the robe and starts running around in joy, but she suddenly bumps into a thug. The thug walks towards her in an intimidated manner and starts messing with her, but Satu steps in to protect her. The thug looks at Satu and asks if he is the one who found the new door of the labyrinth and mocks him for being a complete weakling while his teammates are very strong. He yells at him to stop acting like a big man just because he is a bit famous and then proceeds to punch Satu. But Satu quickly holds his arm and twists it behind his back, making him fall face first on the ground, begging for him to stop. Later, Latha gets back to her usual small size and Railsa returns from the acupuncture shop with the wizard. The trio looked at the container in which Latha had a bath and turned it into a human size. Soon, the dwarf comes to their rescue again and tells them that the wizard has a lot of strange things that make fairies go back to their usual size for some time. Soon, Satu starts a handyman business in this new world where slowly and gradually all their former teammates start flocking in the inn to get his help in doing some odd jobs. And finally, Satu realizes that he is a great handyman who is loved by all. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.